in your opinion, what are some of the pressing economic issues in South Africa right now that the everyday person out there on the street, you know, really wants to be heard?
Yeah, I mean, you've got a young population in South Africa. It's 50 million people, but I think arguably about 35 million of those people are under the age of 40. So jobs, jobs, jobs. Fortunately, it's not an original idea. The President in his State of the Nation address acknowledges it. The Deputy President in the National Development Plan acknowledges it. Trade unions, as they're fighting for higher wages, acknowledge that this is the biggest social issue in South Africa. But I think we need to channel it more towards job creation for young people, because there's many young South Africans who want to live the dream of the democratic republic, the country of Nelson Mandela's values of economic justice and freedom, and they can't, because they come out of university, college, high school, and there aren't those jobs there. Now, it's not the responsibility of the government to create jobs. They can't do it. But an enabling environment that is going to promote investment, encourage existing businesses to expand. And I think this is where there's a disconnect, is that, you know, the economy is sluggish, so investors aren't motivated to come to South Africa because the returns are going to be so low.
Right.
How much money are you going to make in an economy that's growing at 2%, you know? When there's so much regular industrial action, labor protest, it again puts investors off. When you've got credit ratings downgrades, it raises the cost of borrowing. So these are the things that the government can try to find solutions to, so that those who have the capital can bring it in, so that those who need the jobs have an opportunity. And I think maybe there's a little bit more of a national dialogue that's required in that sense. But that said, I listen to youth radio stations, 5FM, I listen to YFM, and I know young people are undeterred. Young people are going to be masters and mistresses of their destinies, irrespective of what the government of the day is able to do.
Now, you mentioned Nelson Mandela just a little bit ago. It's Nelson Mandela Day today, and the FW de Klerk biopic is actually premiering this weekend at the Durban International Film Festival. I know you had a chance to sit down with him. What was it like to interview one of the men responsible for changing South Africa?
FW de Klerk, I know he's a divisive figure in South Africa. You know, it's one of those glass half empty, half full, depends on what your political perspective is. But when I had an opportunity to sit with FW de Klerk, he is not in any way deluded about his place in South Africa's history. He knows that he's a hero to some and a villain to others, but he's very much on the path of reconciliation. He's very much a South African saying, I took a risk, a political gamble, to be part of the solution. It paid off, and I'm still living my life in such a way that I want to be part of the solution, despite the faults of the party I represented or the moment in time in which I was a politician. You can still change the way you think and the way you do things. And I think for me that's what he represents, is, you know, you are not locked in your destiny just because you were born into particular circumstances or people see you in a particular way. You still got a lifetime to make it come right. And that's what he's about.
Great. Well, thank you for coming in. Can you just remind me how people can see your show if they want to check you out on BBC World?
Well, do watch us on BBC World News. It's channel 400 on DSTV for those living in South Africa. The show is aired on Fridays at 16:40 local time, so that's 20 to 5 on a Friday.
Yes.
It's repeated at about 10:10 p.m. on a Saturday night. It's repeated at noon on a Saturday afternoon, and it's repeated early hours at about 2 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. We usually work in GMT, but I know here we're in a Central African time zone, so it's 4:40 on a Friday, it's 10:10 on a Saturday night, it's midday on a Saturday, and it's early hours of the morning. And the reason is because we're on a different, you know, we follow the sun. So on Saturday nights and Friday evenings, we're catering for audiences in West and Southern Africa.
Right.
The early time zones, we're catering for audiences in Asia and in the United States, who are either way 6 and 7 hours behind or ahead of us. So it's structured in such a way that the whole world gets to see what Africa is all about. And we're not the only African show on BBC. There's a daily news program focused on Africa. There are many radio programs, from Newsday in the morning to Focus Radio in the afternoon. So there's many opportunities to watch African content, because the BBC wants to be part of a world that's changing, and Africa's part of that change.